Okay, so here we have the ingredients needed for your panna cotta recipe. Some will be a little challenging to find, so I'm going to give some substitutions here. So we've got our raspberries. These are frozen raspberries, 500 grams. Any fruit can be used here. This is going to be making a sauce that we're going to use for plating or topping our panna cotta. So we're using frozen raspberries, but you can use any fruit you'd like here. I have sugar for my raspberry sauce at 80 grams. Of course, if you change this fruit to a sweet fruit, you can eliminate this or adjust it based on taste. And then I have 5 grams of lemon juice. If your sauce can benefit from lemon zest, I do suggest zesting and adding it here. We're going to take those ingredients and set them aside to cook down later. Other ingredients we need, I need a container of just some cold tap water. It's to activate my gelatin, so I need an undisclosed amount, just a container of cold water, 500 ml of cream and 500 ml of homogenized milk. I also have here 200 grams of sugar to sweeten my panna cotta. Again, if you don't want the amount of sugar here, you can reduce this. It is not integral to the structure of the recipe, purely flavor. And then I have 5 grams of vanilla extract here. You can add or remove flavors. You could put zest in these as well. I often do this instead of homogenized milk. I would use coconut milk and cream and then put some lime zest. Then I get a nice coconut lime flavor. So you can get really creative with panna cottas. The hardest thing you're going to have trouble finding is gelatin sheets. I do know some bulk stores will sell boxes divided up. Otherwise, you buy a box on Amazon. It will be pricey, but it will last forever. By far, gelatin sheets are a superior quality of gelatin, easier to work with, but they can be substituted with powdered gelatin. The only difference from switching from sheet gelatin to powdered gelatin is you need to know how much water you need to activate your powdered gelatin. Sheet gelatin will absorb what it needs on its own and leave the rest in the container. Powdered gelatin, you have to know the measurement. So this is often on the packaging of the powdered gelatin or can be found on the website of the company that has provided it. So that is a quick substitution from powdered to sheet gelatin. First thing I'm going to do is take my sheets one at a time and submerge them into the water. I have to hydrate my gelatin before I use it, or it will not do anything. It will not dissolve. It'll be like you put saran wrap in your product. So the idea is you have to hydrate it. Gelatin is an animal product, so you cannot make this vegetarian unless I switch my gelatin out for another form of coagulant. You can use a product called agar-agar, which is a vegan gelatin made from seaweed. It is available in a lot of bulk stores. So with my gelatin sitting, you can put it in the fridge if you're going to be letting it sit longer than 20 minutes. It will take a minimum of 5 minutes for this to soften up at least. Longer is better. I used to do this and leave them in the fridge overnight. So as long as they're in cold water, they won't go anywhere. If this water warms up, they can dissolve. So we want to make sure that the water is nice and cold. While I'm waiting for my gelatin to dissolve, I can set up my ramekins. I'm going to be using disposable plastic ramekins. You can also use your white ramekins. These are just decorative ones, and they do make some interesting shapes when you are unmolding. There is a store in Toronto on Spadina called Tap Thong, P-H-O-N-G. It is on Spadina, north of Queen, I believe. And they will supply things like this, or you can order things like this from Amazon or sources like that. They do give really interesting shapes to the panna cottas. So set those aside. We can move back to our custard here. I'm going to get my element out along with a pot. So doing this over low heat, I'm going to add my milk and my cream together. I want to bring this up to just above body temperature. I like to say close to the pre-boil again, so that ruffling surface or that little bit of steam. I don't want to bring this to a boil. I'm just trying to warm it up enough so my gelatin sheets can dissolve in it. While I'm waiting for that to warm up, I can add my vanilla to this along with my sugar. Once I feel my sugar dissolve here, just give it a minute to get a bit warmer here, I can fish out my pieces of gelatin. So I know, oh, a little bit of sugar still there. You can see it on the spatula. So a little bit more. Again, you can change the dairies here. You can get creative. The coconut milk was a good one. There's all kinds of nut milks that would make delicious panna cottas. What we're technically doing is a very soft set custard. So we want it to have just a little bit of jiggle. So my sugar has now dissolved. I don't see any more on my spatula. So I'm going to reach into my water. You can see that the gelatin has become very flexible. It literally feels like jelly. I'm going to wring out the extra water. I'm going to take this gelatin mass and add it to my cream. You're going to see it disappear almost instantly. I want to make sure it is fully dissolved. I can turn off my heat. And if I don't see any sugar or any gelatin, that's hot enough. Any hotter and you can change the flavors of your dairy. So what I'm going to do now is take this mixture and divide it up to my ramekins here. Might want to transfer to a jug container. These can be made any size, any shape, as long as it's a thin wall container that can be plunged into some hot water. You can make a panna cotta in it. These are smaller than your average ramekin, that's why I have more than a dozen. But this mixture would make a dozen average size ramekins in its yield. So I'm going to transfer these to the fridge and I'm going to give them a good couple hours to fully set, and then we will get to unmolding. Okay, so we're going to prepare the raspberry sauce for our panna cotta, and this is the same application for any type of fruit. If you're going to change the fruit, I suggest the same method. What I'm going to do is add my frozen fruit to my pot and start with some low heat. The idea is until the fruit defrosts and put some liquid on the bottom of the pan, you can really scorch the fruit. So it is important to start out really slow, and I just want to get this melting and coming up to a simmer. The idea is just bring the fruit to a boil so that all the liquid can come out of the cell membranes that are in the raspberries or any type of fruit, so that I can reduce that liquid if I choose, add more if I want it to be thinner. But the idea is to get the sauce, we have to bring it to a boil so that the cell membranes break down. I'm going to keep my raspberry bowl close by at hand so that I can put my sauce in there to chill. Things that would be delicious here, something like some lemon zest in here would be very, very nice. You can get really creative here. You can do fruit blends as well. It does not have to be just one solid type of fruit. Now, if you choose, you can strain your raspberry sauce. You do lose a lot of your final weight when you strain out your raspberry seeds. I'm going to leave them in there. I don't have a problem with them personally, But if you want to have a nice smooth, almost a coulis, then you will have to strain. And see, my fruit are starting to melt and get a little bit more moisture in there, so I can increase my heat. As long as you're watching the pot, nothing bad will happen. You don't have to stir constantly. As long as the heat is low and your fruit doesn't burn, it's fine. I'm working on medium heat here. Don't want to go high with something so fragile. Okay, so I've started to reach a slow simmer. I'm going to turn my heat down because I really don't want to damage the flavors of the fruit. I just want to bring it to that simmer point. I'm going to add my lemon juice and my sugar. This will also stop the cooking process so I don't overcook my fruit. I like the consistency of this sauce without cooking it down anymore. But if you find that it is really thin, you can always cook it on a very low heat to get some of this moisture out. I'm just stirring to dissolve my sugar. And I'm going to transfer this back to my original raspberry bowl, cover it directly with a piece of saran wrap. And that is a very, very simple fruit sauce that can be made with any type of fruit. Put saran wrap on it directly. And you can store this in the fridge. Saran wrap directly on the surface so that we don't develop a bit of a skin. Even chefs have a hard time with saran wrap. And then I'm just going to put that in the fridge. Okay, so I'm going to get my panna cotta unmolded and plated. This is them straight from the fridge. They've been there about 2 hours. You can see that they're a little bit wobbly, like a soft jello. Okay, you can store these in the fridge for up to a week. Just cover them so that they don't dry out on top. To unmold these, you can just serve them like this with raspberry sauce on top, and that's a nice travel cup. Or you can professionally plate. So this technique I'll show you can be applied to pretty much any type of plating, but this is how I'm going to choose my panna cotta. Now mine are quite small, so for a portion, I think 3 is a good size. And my strawberry sauce is cooled and thickened, and you can see it's still a little bit runny. I like it for this consistency, but again, if you want to thicken it up, you can just cook it on a low heat for a bit longer. So, and then I have a pot of boiling water here. So this is hot water that's just off the heat. To do this, I'm going to take a spoon and I'm going to take some of my raspberry sauce and pool it on one side of the plate. I like to remove the rest from my spoon. I don't have to clean it, but just so it's not dripping on top of it. Then I'm going to use a swiping action to drag this sauce across the plate, just to give it some shape. I also have some fruit, just some berries cut, and the mandatory mint leaf, if you choose. So what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to plunge them into the hot water just for a few seconds to melt that exterior layer. I don't want to keep them in too long because it will dissolve all of it. And then you can always set it back in the fridge to refreeze. So it's not the end of the world if you melt it a little bit too much. I'm going to dry the bottom of my cup. You can see I can pull it away from the side. It's coming free from the side, so that's going to easily unmold. So I'm just going to flip it, give it a bit of a shake so some of that air can get out from underneath, and you can see it comes out pretty easily. Pull back with your finger to see if it is releasing from the side so you don't melt too much. If you melt it too much, you'll just get melted panna cotta on your plate. Dry the bottom. I just give it a bit of a shake, or you can pull it back so it can get some air back there. Okay, so once you've got them out, you can always, if you've got little blenders, that's where you put your fruit. Anything that doesn't look perfect, that's where you add your elements of interest. I also like to have inconsistency to my plate. So whenever you're doing something like this, always think odd numbers, off balance. It looks a lot better to your customer, and nothing is more fun than presenting this dessert. And enjoy your panna cotta.